Chris Long signs the contract extension. James Laurinaitis probably coming here soon. How important is it to get pillars like that signed, and what does it say about maybe where the Rams are now compared to where they used to be in getting those kinds of guys signed?
Well, let's see if you think this is an outrageous statement. Chris Long may not be signed if Jeff Fisher isn't here. Yeah. I mean, if it's another first-year coach with something to prove, a first-time head coach. Look, when you're 15 and 65 over 5 years, and I guess Chris was here for 4 of those 5, you may not be in a big hurry to say, okay, I'll sign on for 4 more, 5 total here. I'm going to test free agency. I think it says a lot about what Chris Long and James Laurinaitis, 2 of your leaders, are thinking about the future of the franchise with Jeff Fisher here, because he didn't even think twice about finishing the season and going to free agency. And I don't think if Jeff Fisher isn't here, we're not talking about a Chris Long extension, James Laurinaitis. I think they let it play out and see where this thing's going.
First of all, I think it was a tremendous deal. I think the day that they moved Chris Long to left end 2 years ago, he became a huge force in this defense. Now there's players, emerging players and young players that are going to be really good. And James Laurinaitis is a fine linebacker. We'll talk about that as well. But at this point in time, at this moment, there's one dominating player on that defense, and that's Chris Long on the left side. I mean, 8.5 to 13.5. I mean, I always thought Chris Long would be a terrific player in this league. I never thought he would be an elite sack guy, and maybe he wouldn't have been on the right side. But on the left side, he has far exceeded my expectations to where I guarantee you he's become what I call an ambient player. He's a guy that keeps you up nights if you're an offensive player. You have to have a plan for Long. That's why I keep beating the table that the emergence of Quinn this year is so important. If Quinn can play like we all know that he has the talent to play, the innate talent to play, now you're not going to be able to put the tight end over there and chip him all day long. And that's why some of the other guys can make him better. But he has become an impact player. That was wonderful to get that done.
And 13 sacks with, let's be honest, pedestrian defensive tackle play.
And never being ahead.
Pedestrian defensive, and never being ahead, never being able to pin your ears back and go after a quarterback for a quarter and a half if you're winning football games and you have the lead and you're up by 10 points or 2 touchdowns. But the defensive tackle play last year fell off. It was pedestrian at best. And Rick knows this, your defensive ends lose so many sacks with an escape route up the middle. You don't have to be a slippery guy at defensive tackle. You just got to push the pocket to take out that escape route. And I think Chris and Quinn will both benefit, at least by design, by having better defensive tackle play on third down.
Well, another way they could benefit is better corners, another position that the Rams addressed repeatedly during the offseason. Lots of competition out there. We kind of know who the guys are, but maybe not how they're going to line up when it's all said and done. What are you seeing there, and what are you expecting from this group?
Well, I think the first 2 guys have established themselves already. Cortland Finnegan is a Pro Bowl corner. He's an upper tier guy. Janoris Jenkins has come in here and captured the imagination of everybody, myself included. When people talk about him being a top 15 talent that slid for obvious reasons, they're absolutely right.
We get it now, don't we?
Yeah, we really get it. The kid has tremendous, he's not just talented, he has great instincts, he loves the game. I think those 2 positions are solid, and you're already better because of it. The third corner is going to be critical. If Fletcher stays healthy, I'm very confident in him. If he's your third corner, if he can come off that knee. I watched Trumaine Johnson. I thought he did a good job Saturday. He got a pick. He tackled well. He looks good coming off the bus. Third corner is a big issue, though, because if you follow the modern day game the way it's evolved, you're looking at 3 wide receivers probably 60 to 65% of the game. So. And I hate to say this, I don't want to offend the Sam backers, but the third corner has almost become much more of a critical position than the Sam backer.
Well, Rick's point, and he believes in it, and statistics bear it out in today's game, is that you win and lose most football games defensively in your nickel defense. Yeah. I mean, that's just the way it is, but percentage-wise. Last year, think about the issues here with all the struggles at corner and all the injuries at corner. You were really lining up with safeties, guys who were in the nickel and the dime with a lot of safeties. You have an abundance, potentially, of talent here. You're going 5 deep if you count Jerome Murphy here, all right, at corner. So that makes you better in your nickel and your dime. Like Rick, I'm a big Bradley Fletcher fan. The only thing this kid hasn't done is stay healthy. It's not a toughness issue. His injuries have been serious. The bad luck kind of injuries with the knee, tearing the knee up. He's a fast healer. We know that. He will come up and support and thump you in the run. He's got the long arms to play press coverage. I think when he's healthy, he's a very, very, very good corner. So they're deep right now at this position. Jeff Fisher will tell you that's the deepest position they have on defense.
See, if Bradley comes back, you know, which I kind of, in my heart, I watched him pretty close, you know, and I thought he handled his body pretty well for a guy coming off a knee. I really did Saturday. I don't expect him to be perfect right off the bat. I've coached those corners. And now, if you have him as that third corner on the outside, and you have Janoris Jenkins on the other side, now for the first time, you put Cortland Finnegan at the nickel, or what I call the inside slot corner. This has been a weakness of the Rams that nobody's ever talked about, and it just continually has gotten you beat for years and years and years. Actually, the Rams have not had a good inside corner since Ron Bartell played there in '08. Mark my word. You put Finnegan in there, now you got that feisty guy that can blitz, that can play that slot. You got a perfect matchup in there, and that'd mean a lot.
You guys touched a little bit on the other defensive linemen aside from Long. If we go back to April, General Manager Les Snead, after they drafted Brocker, said, "We think this is a position of strength on this team right now." Do you view it that way? Is that a group that if everybody kind of emerges can become a force, and how are Brockers and Langford fitting in?
Well, I'll focus on the starters. I know it's a huge upgrade, at least potentially, because we know Kendall Langford has a body of work you can base your assumption on in the National Football League. And the more I see of Brockers, the more I like, especially Ben as a run stuffer. He was brought here first and foremost to improve the run, improve the run defense. If you improve your run defense, that will dramatically improve you across the board. That'll make your offense better, make your special teams better. It shortens fields. It gives you a chance to control the game, get on time of possession. He was brought here to stuff the run, and he and Langford are both big bodies in there. And I defer to Britt Miller here. I talked to Britt after practice in the first week, and he told me, "Listen, I've been out here 5 days, and I haven't gotten a lick on Laurinaitis yet. I can't get to him." He said, "I literally cannot get to him. I am dying to hunt him up." And you know Britt loves the contact. He can't get through him. So far, so good. A lot remains to be seen, but Jeff Fisher coaches his team a certain way. He builds his teams a certain way. And so it shouldn't be a surprise that they invested heavily in a cornerback and invested heavily in a #1 pick and a defensive tackle.
Potentially, it's a good front. I mean, you know, that now Long already is good. Quinn has to get good. You know, definitely has pass rush ability. He has ability to turn the corner. He's got a lot of things going. He's got to learn instincts. He's got to learn how to play in the briar patch. If he does that, then you're going to be okay outside. The guys inside are going to, as Steve said it best, you know, they're going to be substantially better. The first thing that hits me as a former defensive coordinator, when I walk out, I see better corners, better tackles, and better will linebacker. Just for starters. I mean, it just hits me perimeter speed. Now, those big guys right now early, if they stop the run like Steve talks about, I always said this in the defensive line, you have to earn the right to rush the passer. If you don't stop the run, it's 2nd and 4, boys, and you ain't rushing the passer. So you have got to be able to stuff that run, and you have to do it without blitzing every down, because blitzing, they'll catch up, they'll get big plays on you. Those are big guys. I even noticed Conrath in there. There's a lot of big bodies in there. And I feel so much better for Laurinaitis, who's a great player. But in the past, especially last year, not so much 2 years ago, but we had bad tackle play. And you could tell if you were running a combo block with your guard and tackle last year, you could just say, hey, bump and get to Laurinaitis, because we're not going to have to worry about these tackles. Now you're going to have to start staying on those double teams, which is going to make him a hell of a lot better.
Now there's a little bit of uncertainty at the outside linebacker spots. Maybe one of them is a little more settled than one of the safety spots as well. How do you see that all playing out at those spots?
Well, the will linebacker, I'm a big Jolon Dunbar fan after the first week. I mean, the kid has got great instincts. He gets to the football. He has a great football intelligence, you can tell. I think he's going to be the best will linebacker they've had here probably since Pisa was playing
I think so, yeah.
I think he's a similar kind of player as Pisa. I think he probably is a little bit more adept at taking on a block than Pisa was and shedding. So I understand completely why he was brought here from New Orleans. The Sam linebacker situation, there are some guys there. It will sort itself out. There's some experience there in Hagan. I'm intrigued by Josh Hall. Been watching him at practice a little bit, taking on tight ends. I think he's done a nice job. He's added some size and strength. But, you know, as Rick said, your Sam linebacker in this day and age on the field, what, 30% of the time?
30% of the time.
Not minimizing the position, but there are more important positions in terms of how many reps on the field.
Yeah, I'm with you. Dunbar was a very good player in New Orleans, particularly 2 years ago. Very productive. It was a tackle machine. He'll go sideline to sideline. He's athletic enough to stay in on all the sub packages. You're not going to have to take him out. He's going to be able to match up really well. You know, in the past, one of our linebackers, other than Laurinaitis, just absolutely died on perimeter runs and pass coverage. So, and then the Sandbacker, you've got a bunch of veterans and Hall, but you know, and even McIntosh has played both sides. So, you know, with the present company, and I see that they're moving guys in and out all the time to try to figure it out. I feel like they're going to come up with an adequate guy. You know, that thing was such a disappointment a year ago. That, along with the defensive tackle play, I can't help but thinking you're going to be better.
Yeah, the will linebacker, if you're playing in space, that's a premier job. If you're going to play in space, you got to be around the football. If we're backing you off and letting you read things, you have got to find a way to get to the football, and Dunbar looks like he'll do that.
How about the safety spot? Craig Dahl is a veteran. Darian Stewart was kind of a guy from the previous regime getting a chance. They're alternating. How do you see that whole thing playing out?
Well, that's an interesting thing to me. Now, Stewart has been, you know, has had the lingering hamstring. Okay, that's very interesting because Michael's a very good player. Michael can play back. He can play up. He can do whatever you really want him to do. He's productive. He's a playmaker. This is an interesting development because I thought that at the end of last year, Stewart was clearly the better player. Now, I thought Stewart was a bit of a liability. Steve and I talked about that in deep coverage. He's really good in the box. I mean, and he's good underneath in the box. I mean, he plays coverage down low around the box really well. And I thought that he would be the natural progression to the next level. Now, Dahl is also a pretty good box guy. So, you know, they're looking to me like, you know, they're messing with those guys at free. If you go to a true free safety, Dahl might have the edge on that. But I think that will play itself out because one thing about Stewart, he's really a good young talent. I think he's a really young talent that has a tremendous upside. It's kind of sad that he's got the injury that's keeping him out of there.
Yeah, I think he has great instincts. I think he's the times he got in trouble last year, just a little too aggressive. Running plays, not breaking down, and that's a byproduct a lot of times of being young. Craig Dahl is a great box player. It remains to be seen if he can be effective in the true deep safety sense and covering guys, but he's a thumper close to the line of scrimmage, and I'm with Rick. I think Quentin Michael's a very, very good football player.
Same question I asked you about the offense. A sleeper, a guy maybe flying under the radar, and it can be somebody you think is going to make the roster or somebody you think is going to make more of an impact on the team this year.
Well, there's two guys I kind of have my eye on. We pretty much highlighted everybody. I keep seeing the Conrath kid show up with the first team. I mean, that's not an accident. You know, they get in a 2-minute drill. He's in the first nickel. You know, he's another one of those 6'7" guys. That's a big pocket pusher that Steve was talking about. If my edge guys can go there and my guys push the pocket. So I got to kind of keep my eye on him. I mean, coaches don't put you on the first team for nothing. And then the other guy I really got to keep my eye on is Trumaine Johnson because I think that he's probably going to have some role on this team. What it is, I'm not sure. Whether it's corner or eventually. See, I think eventually he's the big-time safety. He's the big-time free safety because of that size and that ability to tackle and that great range. That's just me. And I'm not saying that's right now because you still can't have enough corners. You know, Jerome Murphy, you mentioned that before. I liked Jerome Murphy before he got hurt. You know, so if he's back, you know, and Fletcher's back, then you have more flexibility with Johnson. It's just, but Johnson, I think, and Conrath, believe it or not.
My heart's with the free agents, the guys who are under the radar coming in, the guys who have nothing to lose. At linebacker, I really like this Alex Hoffman-Ellis. I think the kid shows some toughness in the middle. I think he gets around the football field very, very well. And when he's had the opportunities, when balls have been up for grabs, he makes the play. He catches the ball. It's a little thing. It's a subtle thing. But I want to see him play and play a lot here in the preseason. I think there's an opportunity to be the backup Mike linebacker here. It's going to come down, obviously, to special teams play. But I've been impressed by him so far. And then in the back end, a couple of guys at safety, Matt Daniels from Duke and Rodney McLeod from Virginia. He's like Conrath. Virginia didn't have any premier talents the last couple years coming out, so the big scouts, everybody wasn't converging on Virginia like they had when Chris Long was coming out. And so sometimes guys fly under the radar, but the more you see guys, I like McLeod's instincts, and the kid from Duke's played very, very well at safety too.